What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I want to break down what's going on with the overall market, talk about some big pieces of news that just came out that are causing the market to tank, and another unknown catalyst that just came out that's also slowing down the markets. Before I break anything down all this information, though, let me just mention a couple of things. I'm firstly not a financial planner, so take none of this as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you're guaranteed up to 12 free stocks. The offer ends in just 7 days, so check it out before they run out. Anyways, let's talk about the market. How are things looking? SPY is continuing to downtrend, looking relatively weak right now. So is Tesla, and Apple is leading the way down because Apple got hit with some major news that's pretty bad, and that's causing Apple to continue to sink down. This is pretty big news so far. I'm going to break down what the technicals are suggesting, but also why on earth the market is sinking like this. There are two main reasons. The first one would be initial jobless claims was only 216,000. That is much lower than what the forecast and consensus were. We wanted this to be around 230 to 240,000. The last time it came out, it was 230,000. This time it was 216,000, so lower than before. Why is that important? Because the labor market is still showing some strength. The labor market has not entirely slowed down the way the Fed wants it to. And this is very, very important because the Fed is being more and more incentivized to raise rates one more time. Now, if you look at the unit labor cost, Q over Q, they also went up. 2.2% is higher than what the forecast was as well. The Fed is being incentivized to give us another rate hike. The Fed is incentivized to slow the economy down even more because we're not getting as much contraction as what they would like. So that's very important. This is why this is causing the market to slow down. But this is just not the only catalyst. We also have this catalyst right here. This report just came out. The news came out yesterday night that Apple is falling after China has reportedly banned the iPhone use by governmental officials. Now, this is not just, a direct catalyst that's hurting Apple, but it's more like this has another opportunity cost. When you think about it, how is this going to affect Apple, its relationship with China, its relationship, with its other rivals, as the government is incentivizing its people to use its own phones and not iPhones. So that's some very, very important news. So with this news coming out, this is causing Apple to sink like a rock, and this in turn is going to affect the market even more. Now, in my previous videos, I was talking about how, if there is some kind of bad news, the market could gap down. But then looking at it so far, the market's not showing signs of a bounce just yet. And this bad news just came out that's slowing Apple down as Apple's leading the way. Now, a couple of last things before I talk about the stocks and the prices. I just want to mention that it's been a slow September. This is nothing out of the ordinary. There have been some warnings for airlines as jet fuel prices have been going up alongside crude oil approaching that $90 a barrel price. It's actually going to be spiking above that pretty soon, most likely. Looking at Roku, they laid off 10% of their workforce, and then we're seeing more and more virus cases and hospitalizations across the US. I just hope everyone stays very well during times like these. Anyways, when it comes to the market, now let's talk about some charts. How are things looking? So the thing is, even though I told you all that the market could kind of like, gap down and to make an attempt to bounce or just try to bounce, the problem is I didn't know about any like major negative pieces of news involving Apple or anything like that at the time. And now that the news came out, the market is just continuing to sink. We're still looking relatively weak. If we look at Apple and we zoom out of the charts, we have support around the 175s. We're currently at 176.19, but it's continuing to free fall. So Apple still looks more bearish. We're going to be watching 175 as our support. We could drop a little bit more on Apple, so that may drag the market a little bit lower once we open, but it could try to see support at 175. We'll see if that holds or not, but it's still looking like it's falling. It's still looking kind of weak. For SPY, it also looks relatively weak. Now, SPY has a bullish divergence that's developing, but keep in mind it's developing. It has not fully developed just yet. That tells me that this thing may get a bounce in the future, but before that happens, before there's any bounce, we could drop even more. That's what that is suggesting. Where could we drop to? Well, 442 flat could be a very important target, like way down here. 442 flat. If that fails us, then I would not rule out the possibility of us getting very close to 440. one of those should be where the bottom is. It may not be 442 because we're still looking weak right now. We could see this thing get very close to 440 if that ends up breaking. So we're going to be watching those supports and see if SPY could bounce off one of those. Still looking relatively weak right now. For Tesla, it's starting to look weaker. We hit 243.5. We are developing this bullish divergence technically, but Tesla is still continuing to fall. And we're going to be watching 242 on Tesla. It's going to be a very, very important level. What concerns me about Tesla is this is starting to look like a inverse cup and handle. So we might see Tesla start to sink even lower, all the way down to these like much lower levels. Into like the 237 area if we break below 242. So you're going to be watching 242. Does Tesla hold that or not? If that breaks, it could come all the way down to 237 to 235 if we get a very big break below 242. So be very careful right there. We're approaching support. We will see if Tesla holds or not. If it breaks, then it is what it is, guys. It's very unfortunate. I want the best for Tesla, but things like this are just part of life. They're part of the stock market, and there's not much we can do about it. The QQQ is also dropping, and at 370. It's continuing to look relatively weak, and then we have this, this imbalance down at 366. If we break below 370, you're going to be watching 368, and then potentially even 366 below that. For resistance, watch 370, 372. 373, 374.5, and then like 376. Now, even though we had some good signals for yesterday, unfortunately, we got some bad news from Apple's. Apple is sinking like a rock. And, when the market has news, those could trump technicals sometimes if you have a very, very big piece of news. So it is what it is. We just have to watch the chart carefully. Let's see the QQQ continue to try to hold its support. If it breaks this 370 area, you're going to be watching 368 and potentially even 366 if that fails, and look for a bounce around there. Nvidia, now, even though we were hoping Nvidia could bounce, unfortunately, bad news has come out, and this thing's approaching its critical support. The really strong support that held this thing up was around this like 440. This is like 448 to 450 area. So we're getting very close to that. We're currently at 457. Nvidia is close to its major support. Watch 455. If that breaks, we could see 448 to 450 as our next critical support on Nvidia. We'll see if it bounces from there or not. And for now, even though it's starting to form a bullish divergence, it's not ready to just start bouncing just yet as it's continuing to sink. So this tells me that the bounce should be coming in the future. We're just not there quite yet. So we're just going to be watching these things very, very carefully. Finally, guys, the VIX is up. The VIX is starting to push up. Nothing out of the ordinary just yet. The dollar also gapped up. If it keeps going, if it holds above 105 and keeps pushing, it's another bearish catalyst. All right. So hopefully all of this information was helpful. I want the best for everyone. Please remain calm, cool, and collected. Watch your levels very carefully and just know that this bad news came out and I couldn't have foreseen this bad news yesterday. And now that the news has come out and it's acting as another catalyst, we're just going to be watching our levels very carefully just to see how things are looking. Anyways, I thank you all so much for listening. Have an absolutely spectacular rest of the day. Remain calm, cool, and collected, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you and peace out.